I'm your host, Sasha Pustam. Welcome to the episode of Wisdom of the Elders, a show dedicated to preserving the timeless wisdom of our healing traditions. Today's interview is with Dr. Morgan Job. Dr. Morgan Job is a well-known personality of Trinidad and Tobago. He was born in Tobago and pursued his higher education in the fields of agriculture and economy. He served the people of Trinidad and Tobago in the ministries of agriculture and economy. He was a Minister of Tobago Affairs, Minister in the Ministry of Finance, and MP for Tobago East. He has traveled widely and lived in several countries around the world. He was a lecturer at UWI, University of the West Indies, and has produced several TV and radio shows such as Reality Check. He has been a regular contributor in the local daily and weekly newspapers for more than 20 years. In his past life, Dr. Job has worked as a farmer and published many books, pamphlets, and CDs. Hi, Dr. Job. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for your invitation.
How are you today?
Well, I hope I'm okay. I feel okay. In fact, I feel good.
Okay, so great. So let's talk about healing and health and how this has filled your life with wisdom in the past and into the present. So I want you to journey back into your life and tell us 3 ways in which you have helped heal the will in your life.
Well, Sasha, I have never set out to heal the world. I always felt that the most important healing problem in the world is to shine a light to people that shows them themselves so that people can introspect. People can understand what is meant. And they wrote on the temple walls thousands of years ago, man, know thyself. It is in self-learning, self-understanding that healing will take place in our world. So that I have always endeavored to help people in my public ministry to see themselves as their great opportunity and as their great problem too. As I said, to look within and to always try to manage oneself in a way to improve his or her relationship with parents, with siblings, with those in authority, the institutions of the state, so that in that way we get a more livable, a more loving, and a better world.
Thank you for that powerful message and reminder. So we move on to now a little bit deeper into what does healing mean to you? What is most important in your will for healing, for one's healing?
Sasha, modern science, by science I mean that investigative methodology that looks at data, masses of data, and interprets it. It's not a way to get into the mind of God, but it's a way to understand ourselves better. And healing, from what the science is telling us, has to do with the state of your mind. Much of what ails individuals has to do with the state of stress, the state of calm, the state of peace of mind. We probably focus too much on drugs and hospitals and fancy technology, and not enough on your state of mind or state of mind. I've lived in several continents, in Africa, Asia, Europe, South America, been to India, read many books. And that experience has taught me that modern man is his biggest problem because he's not dealing with his state of mind, her state of mind. So I would say that my experiences have shaped my attitude to healing as a mental health issue. And this is not to discount or to disparage the role of, antibiotics and other drugs that we use, but clearly they cannot supplant the state of mind as one of the most important aspects of medicine and healing in our world.
Okay, thank you. And let's move on now to what was your most memorable experience of traditional healing? So if something you have experienced or tried in the past, you've seen, done it before.
Well, my mother and my father too, they were kind of traditional in their attitude to health and medicine. So castor oil is a plant, It's the seed from the castor plant. You take that oil and it gives you a purge. And I used to have to do that regularly as a child. And there was also a plant called senna. In Tobago, there's wild senna. You take a wild senna tea, your mother give you that to drink, and you flush out everything. You think your inside coming out. So that, from what I can remember as a child, purges were regular and they were plant-based, either senna or castor oil. There was also some grasses that they would use for other things like fever grass, and other plants too that they would use, gully root, as I can remember. I can't remember having to use those, but the treatments that would require gully root, the treatments that would require fever grass, and other plants. So I'd say that from my childhood, what I can remember quite distinctly are those castor oil and senna purges.
So, Dr. Job, could you recall any role of a healer around you? So, who was the healer around you that would direct you to do these things?
Well, in the village where I grew up, in Tobago, my grandmother and my mother would perform that kind of role, in terms of advising about which bush to draw for which kind of illness. And of course, like I mentioned, my own treatment with senna leaves and castor oil. But I would have heard them discussing the other things and advising other people on other herbs that they can use. So that's my recollection.
Okay, great. And what was your favorite childhood experience, if you had to take us back into your memories from way back, and one that children now may not really know about?
Well, I had a favorite childhood, I would say. My parents, my mother and my father, I was the first. And my mother lived with me in a 12 by 12 board house in Zion Hill in Tobago, built by my father. And I think the things that I can remember, there wasn't any one particular favorite childhood experience. I remember experiences with both my mother and my father, the way they cared for me, the way they loved me, the way they were always close to me, the way they were always talking with me, communicating with me. I think most children who are now troubled, if they lack that early childhood experience of attention and care and affection from parents. My father, he didn't used to live with my mother. I was alone with my mother in this little 12 by 12 house. But whenever he came, he'd bring something. When I learned to read, my mother taught me to read. he would bring the newspaper, sit me on his lap, and tell me to read because he wanted to hear me read. How impactful was that? Immensely impactful. How many children are getting that kind of experience now? Not enough, if any. I remember my father taking me to the beach. You know, the first time I saw the sea, what an amazing experience. You see this vast expanse of water and the waves. I remember it like yesterday. So that I think childhood experiences are very lasting and very impactful, especially when they have to do with the relationship between a child, his mother, or her mother, a child and his father, or her father.
Mm-hmm. And you think that not enough children now are receiving that type of care?
Well, I don't think that I think so. I think the evidence in terms of deviance, in terms of childhood stress, in terms of delinquency, gangs, suicides among children, perversions among children. A lot of it has to do with the fact that children are not getting that kind of bonding, affectionate bonding, which provides opportunity at the same time to transfer those ethical and mores and moral values, that respect for oneself and love of the other person. Like when it was said by the ancients, love is the law and the prophets. Love thy neighbor as thyself. All the doctrines that I have read, the Bhagavad Gita, the Bible, the Quran, the ancient Chinese manuscripts, those books from Egypt, the pharaohs, they all focus the mind on love, how you relate love of self to community and the other. So it's captured in that statement. Love is the law and the prophets. My peace I leave with you, love you one another. Mm-hmm. So that I think that, in terms of my childhood, in terms of, what I want to share, it has to do with getting a more personal relationship with the idea of loving the other, of respecting every human being, seeing whatever you think is God, seeing God in every other face, not race, seeing a reflection of yourself. And that is what is meant by love is the law and the prophets.
A simple and profound message. Also, Dr. Job, I know you'd have a lot to say to the younger generations. So what words of wisdom would you like to share with them?
Well, the younger you go in age, the more I observe, or I think I observe, an alienation from our past. And what I mean by our past is not just our past where some of our ancestors lived in India, or some of our ancestors lived in Africa. We also have ancestors who lived in Spain, France, Portugal, Italy, England, Scotland, Ireland, even in the Nordic countries. And the modern world is a world that is created from ideas that were nurtured in those parts of the world also. The constitution we have, the laws that govern us, the idea of school and university, the technology that we use or technologies that we use, they have an antecedent set of circumstances. They have an origin. There's a culture behind all that. A lot of the young people are alienated from that fact. They're being hog-tied in their mind into a belief that the only valuable and usable past is the past in India or the past in Africa. And that is a fatal flaw that we need to get rid of. We need to get young people here to understand that we have a multifaceted past. We had a past that encompasses the world. And all of it is valuable and useful to us. We need for our young people, for the younger generations as you call them, the younger set of children, we need for them to understand they need to abandon this anti-attitude, anti-European, anti-Western. It's like the old people who talked about throwing out the baby and the bathwater. You need to throw out the bathwater, not the baby. And a lot of what the baby is isn't just what was brought to Trinidad and Tobago by ancestors who came from India or who came from Africa. The baby is all our usable past, our ideas, our technological ideas, our language ideas, our ideas about justice and fair play. All those ideas that help to make Trinidad and Tobago society meaningful and loving. From wherever they came, we need to embrace them. So I am advising that we need the younger generation to abandon this narrow-minded, provincial, parochial attitude to our past. Our past is not just India and Africa. Our past is the world.
So history is a really important...
Supremely important. History is supremely important, but not history as a provincial, parochial, narrow-minded, tribal or racist category. We've been using history and using the past to promote tribalism, to promote the idea of breeding a pure race, preserving Hindu facial features. Africans are black and beautiful. Every child, every woman, every human being that I have ever seen is indeed beautiful. Which is what I mean when I say see God in every face, not race. We need to be interpreting history to guide us to that understanding of, you may even call it our divinity, our godlike, creative and destructive being. And that is what we need to be using history to do, to lead us to that understanding, that we are all part of the whole. And when we see the other, we ought not to be partitioned in an adversarial relationship to the other, but see the other as a reflection of ourselves. And in that way, history will become useful and purposed to promote a more loving, a more peaceful state of Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you. Okay, so what words of wisdom would your ancestors always say in your presence? And what do you think they may like the future generations to know?
Well, my mother always told me, good name is a nickname for every damn food. Good name is a nickname for every damn food. And what she meant by that was, it's all right to be praised, but when you see everybody is in favor of praising you, maybe they're using you. Maybe you're doing something that isn't really good for you in the long run. There's an African proverb, when you're too happy, pinch yourself. So if you're getting too indulged with your own self as a result of public praise, you better be careful. I think that links to my initial statement where I was talking about how you heal the world. It's not to set out on an individual and purposeful crusade to save mankind. The most important crusade and use of one's time is to look within. Man, know thyself. So that in terms of what my mother would have told me, and my father would have concurred in a lot of ways, the great poets have written about it too. Never be beguiled by public praise. That's what conmen and deceivers use. They try their best to understand to understand what moves you, what you desire, what your weaknesses are. That's why in all the ancient wisdoms they talk about lust and greed. We captured by material interest. That phrase, material interest. When you are too attached to material interest, to things of the world, as they would say in some doctrines, you are on the way to disaster, to self-destruction. So that would be my recollection and interpretation of those famous words. Good name is a nickname for every damn fool.
That's a good one. So thank you so much, Dr. Joe, for sharing and planting these seeds of wisdom. Is there anything you would like to share in addition?
Just to summarize and say that we have too much hatred. We spend millions of dollars in Trinidad and Tobago to cultivate ignorance and to cultivate hatred. We don't do enough to teach children to see God in every face and to love thy neighbor as thyself. This country is a cruel place, a painful place. It's a vale of tears, a slough of despond and despair, because there is not a sufficiency of love, of human understanding, I might even say humane empathy and understanding. That would be my advice to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, in addition to leading their minds to look within. They should look within for the courage and the ability to love, to empathize with what they would normally call them people, the other, them Africa, them India. You see, them is us. Yes, it's not for nothing that, at least in the Hindu doctrine, they say that Lord Krishna told Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Arjuna was told, even the demons, you must respect them because they can have no power without me. And he that looks at another human being without malice and without pride, but with love and affection, that devotee is dear to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Again, powerful messages and timeless wisdom.